this technique, you're going to need Hero Art Shadow Ink or Memories dye ink. I've tried this with several different inks, and these are the only two formulas that work with this particular technique. You'll also need a Colorless Blender Copic marker, and it's the alcohol-based formula of the Copic marker that reacts with the dye ink in these two particular ink formulas. They're actually waterproof, so you can't do this with just water and a paintbrush. You won't get the same result. And it's really neat to watch. So here you'll see that I am just stamping out my arrangement first, and I'm overlapping here because when we start blending with the colorless blender, it's going to push that ink around, and it actually causes the colors to kind of separate, and whatever colors make up that color that you're using, they'll start to come through. So say you'll see here later we'll be using a green, and you'll see the blues and the yellows and even some of the brown that actually make up that ink color. They'll start to separate, and it really looks like watercolor. So it's actually really cool, and we're not using any water at all. So you retain all of the control, and you get to decide where the ink goes instead of the water deciding where the pigment goes. So now that my arrangement is done, I can start doing the fun part. I can start making the magic happen. So I'm going to use the colorless blender, and I'm going to use the brush tip nib side. And I discovered I had just refilled my marker, so it let out a lot more solution than I wanted. So I've just started dabbing it until some of that excess solution is gone. I just dab it over on a paper towel. If you get too much, it's just going to kind of pour out onto the paper, and it's going to cause it to go where you don't want it to go. So here you can already see how that solution is reacting with the ink, and it's causing all of these natural shadows and highlights. And you can just keep going back and forth, in and out, doing as much as you want. I usually tend to start off by just swirling it around and seeing what happens. And I can almost visually pick out some petals at this point, and I can start intensifying where I already naturally kind of see that illusion of a petal. Or I can manipulate and push the ink over and make it look like one flower is more on top of and the other one is underneath. But here you can see I'm just going in a little bit more and pulling out some highlights. Like I can see a petal right here, and I can see a petal happening there. And then it's just kind of random. For the leaves, I'll just go all over them on the first pass. And you can see that blue, because green is obviously blue and yellow. But you can see that blue and the green starting to come out. And it's really neat. And as you get toward the edge, you'll see some of the brown bleed over to the edge, which adds a really nice effect. So you'll continue over everything. I've finished up the flowers and the leaves and the little blue leaves. And now it's time to come in and add some detail. So now I'm going to stamp the detail image of the peony-like flower directly on top of what I just colored. And since this is the Hero Art Shadow ink, it is going to absorb into the paper some, and this is going to get quite a bit lighter. For the little one here, I'm just inking up a portion of that big one since it doesn't really go with that particular stamp. But this is just another example of how versatile they are. I'm just inking up some of that image and then stamping it right over the other one. Now, because I was doing this as a demonstration and I didn't allow the paper to fully dry from the Copic solution, the ink is going to absorb into the paper a little bit more than I wanted it to. So at the end, you'll see that I go over it again one more time with the detail layer, and then it's a little more vibrant. I've went ahead and added the rest of the veins to the leaves and the centers to the flowers. And now here you'll see that I'm just going to go ahead and overstamp that detail layer one more time. And again, this will absorb a little bit more and get a little less vibrant, but I needed it to be, I wanted a little more contrast to match the leaves. Had I used the Copic marker on the leaves, on the veins of the leaves, and blended them in a little more, I could have left it. But I quite like how it turned out. And I just think that it looks really neat. Again, it looks hand-painted, and your recipient will think that you spent a long time on it, and you didn't. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks for watching. Bye.